Three, two, one. So today we're going to be talking about the concept of data liquidity. Now, data liquidity is something that we've been working with our clients on for quite a while, and I think it's a really exciting new concept within data and technology consultancy, because I think it really helps us to get a much better understanding and a much better insight into the first-party data assets that a brand owns and operates. Now, I think we've all been in client meetings that have been to a certain extent predicated on a value judgment around whether or not that brand has a lot of access to data or not a lot of access to data. So, we often hear terms like I'm a data rich organization or I'm a data poor organization, and I think a lot of that is predicated on or derived from some very basic metrics, historical metrics around simply the total volume of records within a customer relationship management platform, or the total site traffic, or the total monthly average users in a mobile app. And I think that all of those metrics are good proxies as to the brand's data footprint, but I think that actually we can be far more sophisticated in the way in which we evaluate a brand's owned and operated data assets, and more importantly than just the total size and volume of that asset, we can start to look at how that data will be applied within a specific context in order to establish whether or not that brand is liquid or illiquid. And by that, what we mean is whether or not a brand can, with the data assets that it has at its disposal, meet specific campaign objectives in the very near term. So data liquidity is underpinned by 3 or 4 core pillars. It's essentially a way in which we've combined quite classic accountancy processes and metrics with established data and technology consultancy services. And the first thing that we do is we build out a data audit, a ledger of all of the first-party data assets that are available to a given advertiser. So that covers CRM, it covers digital media, it covers earned, owned, and paid media activity, it covers mobile app usage, it covers partnerships through which the brand is deriving first-party data sets. It really covers the full spectrum of data sources, any touch point through which the client is able to capture and collect first-party data. And what we start to do once we've got a really good understanding of that universe is we start to compartmentalize it and build a portfolio of the asset so that we can see which data assets the brand has available to it and how those data assets align to specific campaign objectives, specific business objectives. Once we've built that portfolio, we move on to the next step within the data liquidity assessment process, which is essentially looking at technology infrastructure and the way in which technology interfaces. So we look at all of the different technology that the brand has at its disposal, that it's currently licensing or that it's working on through partnerships, through agency relationships, whatever the case may be. And we start to look at how those different technology platforms operate in concert and work together to transform and to convert data assets up through the chain. So we may look at, for instance, how CRM data moves from the CRM database through to a customer data platform, how that's then onboarded into the client's data management platform, and how it's subsequently and finally activated within an ad serving solution or a demand side platform. That would be one example of an activation chain. And we look at all of the different interoperabilities between different platforms within the chain. We look at match rates between them, and then we look at the chain in its entirety. And that process of calculating the efficiency and the effectiveness of passing data from one system to the next through the chain is called throughput. And we get a throughput ratio, which essentially looks at what was left over, what was remaining once we went through that process as a proportion of the total data asset that was originally available to us. And that gives us, if you look at all of the different data assets and the entire universe of first-party data that's available to the advertiser, and all of the different scenarios and all of the different chains, that gives us a good understanding of the brand's data liquidity. How able are they to effectively make those data sets actionable within the context of personalization, dynamic creative and content optimization, media targeting, whatever it may be. So once we've looked at building a data ledger, once we've looked at technology infrastructure and data flows through that technology infrastructure, we start to look at gap analysis and building recommendations in order to improve liquidity. So our recommendations really fall into two broad categories. One is focused on the data partnerships that are potentially available to the brand, the incremental investments that the brand could be making in second and third party data relationships in order to enrich and in order to extend their first party data capability. And the second category is the technology investments, the capital investments that the brand could be making in order to increase the efficiency of the process itself. So looking at different technology that could be brought to bear within the production chain, or looking at new technology that could provide some incremental and strategic benefit. So that's really the data liquidity assessment process, a way in which we can generate, I think, a much better understanding of the first-party data assets that are available to an advertiser and that can be readily applied by the advertiser to meet short-term business objectives.